technically I already spoiled that these two are leaving in a different video, but we haven't talked about it here yet. Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today we're doing games leaving the collection for May. We've been going through the various games that are leaving the collection in May. If you're new to the channel, first of all, like, subscribe, comment, say nice things, preferably nice things. I like nice things better, but whatever you want to say for the algorithm, it's all good. And once a month I do a video of games leaving the collection. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's going to be games leaving the collection. Games that I play a lot of games, and I get a lot of games, and that does mean that games come in, and games have to eventually go, and they go for any number of reasons, from I didn't really like you after the first play, to I liked you after the first play, and the second and the third, but I didn't feel I need to play you a fourth, a fifth, or a sixth, or maybe even in my collection for 3 years, but I haven't really pulled you out and tabled you in 2 years, and I'm starting to realize as I look at you that it's just not going to happen. There's any number of reasons why a game leaves, but ultimately the core reason comes down to this. If I think I'm going to pick another game over you every single time, that's usually when they leave the collection. When you leave the collection, it feels very personal. This whole thing is very personal. Now, a few things. First of all, if you want to know what happens when I do at games, off the bat, generally I sell or trade them. Generally, occasionally I give them away. I do giveaways on the site. I do giveaways on videos on the channel here and there as well. In fact, some of these games, 3 of these games in particular, generally I give away 3-4 games over on my Patreon. So if you are an active patron, or if you become an active patron before I actually go ahead and give these away, then 3 or 4 of these will be given away over there as well. There's details and all that stuff, but basically, but past that, generally I have a link down below that tells you how I can sell or trade a game, or how I can sell a game really. It's a link showing you, 12-minute video, shows you how I go through the process of selling a game, in case you're interested in knowing for yourself, because I generally get that question a lot on these videos. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into the video. Don't know how it takes 2 minutes every time. Either way, let's go ahead and start off. And let's start off with the 2 on the table over here. A whole bunch more timestamps down below for every relevant section. But starting off the bat with Tiny Epic Dungeons. Now, I did review this already, and these 2 were, for context, speaking of giveaways, these 2 were in a video where I was like, hey, I'm giving away some games for other content creators. Support those content creators, subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff on their channel, not just mine. And you can get some games. And so these 2 were in that video. But they hadn't yet been in a games leaving the collection video, and I hadn't talked about why I'm getting rid of them. The short version for most of these, and both these I do have reviews on. Vagrantsong I held out a little bit more hope for. Tiny Epic Dungeons just wasn't for me. I got a few plays of this one in. Tiny Epic Dungeons continues the trend for me of the Tiny Epic series, in which I enjoy my plays of them, but I don't feel compelled to play them. Now, this is not true for Tiny Epic Vikings. Tiny Epic Vikings, their newest game that was just on Kickstarter, that is the only Tiny Epic game I've played so far. Keep in mind, I've played like 5 or 6 of them, not all of them. So before you say, but what about Tiny Epic? Well, Tiny Epic Quest I have played. Tiny Epic Galaxies I have played. Those 2 are often the ones people say, what about for those? And I didn't like those. I did not like them. I just didn't feel compelled to actually keep them. They're both solid, as was Tiny Epic Dungeons. They are all solid, and for me, they are all admirable accomplishments of giving you something travel-sized, giving you something at a great price point, and giving you an experience that I'd rather play something larger and more expensive that doesn't travel well, and I'll save other games for travel. Tiny Epic's great. In general, they do a solid job. I'm just not their target audience for most of them. Tiny Epic Vikings is currently the one that gives me hope and kind of makes me want to try the rest, although we'll see, because I've heard people say Tiny Epic Dinosaurs is good. I've heard mixed things, but some people have said that one really worked for them, and so I should try that one maybe. And Tiny Epic Tactics, and Pirates eventually. I'll get to them all, but Tiny Epic, solid. Do not need to keep it. From there we have Vagrantsong. Now Vagrantsong is a lot better. Vagrantsong I both liked a lot and didn't love Vagrantsong. The character, the atmosphere of this game, full review on the channel, you can check that out, but the atmosphere of Vagrantsong is absolutely obscene. It's over the top, it's incredible. The acrylic standees are amazing. It fits beautifully into the theme. This is one of the more thematic games I've played, and really, really solid as far as what it's doing over there. It has a bit of a campaign progression, a little bit of a choose your own adventure as far as the pathway and the order you can go through things as you go through the story, as you go through a bunch of kind of boss fights. It's boss fight adjacent, a little bit dungeon crawler-esque, a little bit boss fight-esque, more boss fight-esque, because you're basically restoring humanity to these haints, these ghosts that need your help, and every time you hit them, you're healing them. It's thematically a little bit of a disconnect at times, but the general idea is you're restoring humanity to the haints. There are breakpoints, there are boxcars, there's abilities, there's the upgrades, all these things you do in the game, the story choices in between each mission. There's a bunch of choices you make as far as how you spend things. All in all, very, very solid experience. My biggest, well, I had a few pet peeves with it. First of all, I didn't love the fact that every scenario had like little adjustments to the rules, and just enough that I found myself playing most games wrong. Like, I could be wrong here, but I think at every single play I've had of Vagrantsong, at one point or another, I was like, oh, we've been forgetting to do that. It's not the end of the world. I get rules wrong in every game, but in Vagrantsong I noticed that I was getting rules wrong in every game. It's not that hard, to be very clear. It's not like a huge, incredibly hard to learn game. It's totally learnable. It's totally fine. It's just the constant iteration of adjustments of rules for each scenario, and perhaps the lack of the level of attention I would like to have as I try to go through it and be dedicated on top of it, led itself to just not getting every single rule right, and noticing halfway through each scenario that we were playing it wrong. It's still fun. I still enjoyed it. Combine that with a little bit, on my end, I felt a little bit lack of degree of agency. I felt that a lot of the choices I make were often the obvious choice. Not always, for sure not always, but there were definitely times, enough times, that I felt like I'm going through a standard progression. Now, this is something that I have a problem with in general with boss fights, skirmish, dungeon crawlers. At times, I feel the choices are obvious. And the more obvious I feel the choices are, regardless of whether I'm right or wrong, that's one of the interesting things about games, which is the choices in a game could be incredibly not obvious. Kingdom Builder is often a good example that's brought up here, where some people think that the move you make is always obvious. As long as you feel the move that you make is obvious, you feel a lack of agency. And so you are less incentivized to play the game. It doesn't matter if you're wrong. And so I'm perfectly content to say Vagrantsong has the most strategic depth of any game I have ever played. Doesn't matter. For me, I felt that most of the moves I made were obvious, and so while I enjoyed the progression, while I enjoyed the story, while I enjoyed the characters, I didn't feel the need to keep it. Well, I tried to keep it. I did continue to try to dive back in after, but I didn't feel the need after. Next up, we start moving to other games. Now, many of these have been in review, so you may have an idea of what's coming. Let's start off with Batman Everybody Lies. This is going to be a detective game from Portal Games, and it's one that uses the detective system, but with a bit of a, not semi-co-op adjacent. Basically, you have a case, you're going on the case, but the different detectives all have slightly different reasons for what they're doing and why they're doing it. I have a full, not really a review on the channel. I called it not a review because this is based on the detective system, which already exists. And I think what they did well. I just didn't like what they did. What they did gave me a choice in terms of the way I proceed with a detective mystery of a case, in terms of the level of rechecking every piece of information, the level of notes I would take. I think they did a good job making it feel like homework, which to me is probably an apt comparison to what a detective actually would feel like. So I think they nailed that, but it felt to me like I had a choice. I can go with my gut, or I can meticulously take notes, check everything, double check, triple check, re-reference, go to past situations, and then try to actually win. And I don't like it when games force me into those choices. I don't like the choice between playing optimally and playing for fun, because if I play this for fun, I feel like I'm not playing optimally. And if I play it for optimally, it's not fun. I don't like it when a game gives me that choice. And so, I mean, for a review, if you want a review, this is a 2.5 for me. It's a 2.5. It's a game I didn't enjoy. I just don't think I'm the target audience because it's based on a system that has worked. So, it's both a 2.5 and also, if you like the detective system, you'll probably like it. Maybe. I don't really know. By the way, for a record, if you are a Patreon, these are not the games that are eligible, because these two have already been given away. The rest of these, I think they're all eligible past that. There's one decent one at the end. Timestamps, you can check anything. Next up, we have, I think, the only game on this list that I have not played. And you might have questions later. Jetpack Joyride. Jetpack Joyride from Lucky Duck Games. Back before Lucky Duck was like Lucky Duck, if you know what I mean. And if you don't know what I mean is that Lucky Duck has seen a meteoric rise over the past several years, but when they first started, they were known for, like, fruit, what's the fruit game? There's a fruit game, like, you know, you chop a fruit, jeez. What's that game where you, like, chop up fruit in the air, you toss it up and you chop, Fruit Ninja? Fruit Ninja, I think it's Fruit Ninja. They were known for, like, Fruit Ninja and Jetpack Joyride, and then I think Vikings Gone Wild, maybe? They had a bunch of games in their queue, in their system, and more as time went on, Lucky Duck got more renowned for the company that they are. But this is in their early days. Doesn't mean it's a bad game, it just means this is in the early days. They're making some app-based conversions, doing some stuff. Jetpack Joyride's an app. I've played the app. I like the app. I have not played this game. I've read the rules. I just never got it tabled. I don't know what it is necessarily. It might be the lack of critical buzz out there, but at a certain point I realized I'm not interested in really playing Jetpack Joyride. I'm kind of interested in playing it so I can say it's not for me and move on, which is not necessarily fair to it. I mean, the general concept is you have polyomino tiles and you're making a little line, similar to the way you hop up and down in the app, if you know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, I'm sorry. You're making little lines trying to avoid various stuff. It's a real-time game, grabbing various polyomino tiles, placing them down in order to make these cues and make these lines and get as many points as possible. I think the fact that it's a real-time already tells me that it's likely not going to survive. I would likely enjoy my play of it. I can give you like a review of it having not played it, but I've read the rules. I know myself. I know real-time games, but I would likely play it. I would likely have fun with it, and I would likely not be tempted to play it again. And so I just decided to just skip those steps and go ahead and get rid of it. I don't imagine I ever really get it back. I could be wrong. Sometimes I have second thoughts. I'm like, that game, I got rid of it. I really should have given it a try. I don't think that happens with Jetpack Joyride, but who knows? Time will tell. This is the only one that I have not played. As far as the questions, let's go ahead and skip directly to the questions, because you're like, Alex, you just said you only haven't played one, and you have Quests for Valeria, brand new in Shrink. What's up with that? You liar. I'm not a liar. I've played Quests of Valeria. Quests of Valeria. I don't even know the name of it. That's how much I haven't played it. Quests of Valeria, I've played this game and I got rid of it a long time ago. And then going back 2 years now. 2 years now. You know Shira? You know, part of Quackalope, who, if you're an old school person, you know that she was really part of Board Game Co. before she was part of Quackalope. She, like, traitor that she is. But she was part of Board Game Co. first, and she actually was a regular kind of stay-at-home guest doing COVID, meaning she was sheltering alone, and she hung out here doing the whole sheltering alone back in those, like, 3 months of everyone just being completely on their own. And during that time, she started getting into board games, and we love Valeria Card Kingdoms. And so we introduced her to Valeria Card Kingdoms. And when she found out I got rid of other Valeria games, she's like, what do you mean? I love Valeria Card Kingdoms. Get rid of those games back. And so I did. And she hasn't played them. We haven't played them. And so I'm going to put these here. These are leaving. And when I say these, I mean Villages of Valeria as well. Quest of Valeria and Villages of Valeria are two of the Valeria games that I got rid of because I didn't think that they gave me the Valeria charm that I get from Margraves, that I get from Shadow Kingdoms, and that I get from Valeria Card Kingdoms. Also, Valeria Darksworn is excellent for the record. But these two games didn't do it for me. They both felt okay at best, and so I only got them back to play with her, but that was 2 years ago, and it doesn't look like they're being tabled. Which means now these two are leaving, unless Shira sees this video, and then desperately lets me know that she wants them, in which case she can have them, and if she plays them, that's great, but I don't feel the need to keep these on my shelf at this point. That's basically it. They're good games, they're decent games, that I enjoyed playing them. Both of them are good. One's a little Race for the Galaxy adjacent, other one's a little bit more Lords of Waterdeep adjacent. I know it doesn't look like a Lords of Waterdeep size box, but trust me, it's true. But both of them were, for me, forgettable. Next up, we have Chronicles of Crime Millennium Series, specifically 2400. Speaking of Lucky Duck and their rise to fame, this would be part of their rise to fame, the whole Chronicles of Crime series. I have played Chronicles of Crime. I played Chronicles of Crime 2400. I have not played the others yet. I don't know if I feel the need to. I liked Chronicles of Crime when I first played it. I liked it less the more I played it. Chronicles of Crime 2400 is not more or less. My plays of Chronicles of Crime 2400 neatly aligned with where Chronicles of Crime as a series has moved for me, which is to say that I see the pros of it. I have fun playing them. I'm always tempted to dive into the next case, but then whenever I get stuck, I hate the game. Whenever I get stuck on what's happening, I just find myself going through a pattern of just QR code, QR code, QR code, QR code, as you scan your way towards oblivion with a theoretical timer on the game, going back to the whole optimally or not optimally. If I play for fun, I'm just going to click everything and not worry about things, although am I even being a detective at that point? If I play it optimally, I'm trying to be as precise and all that, but then I possibly lose. I like Chronicles of Crime sometimes. Sometimes it gives me good cases where I get to feel clever. Other times I feel the clues are not as obvious, the choices you make are not as deductive, and it's more like intuition, which is fine. I don't really have good intuition. I have decent logic. If you give me a logic puzzle to solve, I like that. But the whole aspect of I was supposed to figure out this meant that and that meant this, it doesn't work for me. I mean, detective as well. We're seeing a pattern here of detective games are depending in terms of they work. I love escape rooms. I love Unlock. I love Exit. I love any escape room style games. I don't know the difference firmly as far as why one versus another. I think that they should, in theory, have a lot of overlap in terms of what they do, but I love. You put me down in front of a good Unlock, I will have a good time, 100%. Or many of the other games, even the Crime Zoom. Crime Zoom's another series from Lucky Duck Games. I'm looking at my shelf over here. I'm not just randomly looking off into the yonder distance. But Crime Zoom is a series from Lucky Duck Games that I enjoyed that too. So some detective games, yes. Other detective games, no. That's where we are. But Chronicles of Crime 2500, a good game. Continues the Chronicles of Crime series, has some elements of it that I like compared to Chronicles of Crime. I like the augments you have as you go, but still not one I need to keep. Now, next up, we have Just One. Just One is a party game that just doesn't get played. That's what it comes down to. I like Just One. I've had fun playing Just One. I think Just One is an intriguing puzzle. The general idea is you have a word, and then you sit there and you give other players their little thing to write down, and everyone has to write down a commonality. So let's pick a word, and let's say the word is, I'm just going to make something up, a chair. Okay, chair is the word. Don't know why, just because there's a chair over there. I'm still looking at the chair. So now I have the word chair, great, and now there's 4 of you, and you have to write something down to get me to figure out what this word is, except for one small problem. Any words that are shared between the 4 of you are not used. So for example, I want to say sit, right? Sit's a good starting point. I'll say sit, that'll be fine, but what if you say sit? That's tricky. I don't like the fact that you're going to say sit, because if you both say sit, then now he has no information at all, so what are we going to do with that? So I sit there and I say table. I figure that between the 3 of you, someone will say something else, and then it'll help. So I'm going to do table, because chairs and table, right? That's awesome. Meanwhile, you don't say sit, but you can't say stand, and you can't say not stand, so maybe you say rest. Rest. And the third person is like back. Back is pretty clever. Unfortunately, I thought back was clever too, so I said back, and now back and back are both gone, and we have rest and table, and I'm like, I don't even know what I'd pick. What would be a rest and a table? Rest and table. I got nothing. Bench! Bench! A bench! That's what it is. It's not a bench, it's a chair. But you get the point. The point is, you have to kind of figure out those clever little clues and those connections in a way that is not obvious, but also not obvious. It's like kind of like if Pictionary were made into like a better game. That's what this is, just one. It's a great game. It's a great game. It also doesn't get played. For us, we tend to go with code names, the crypto. Recently, what's the new one? The new one with for So Clover. So Clover, we go with that one. Just one is really good. Question mark? No, it is really good. I really do enjoy it, but just not enough to keep. Next up, Runestones. Runestones. This is a point, by the way, where I realized someone in a recent video, and I apologize for doing this to you, I'm gonna have to figure this out, but someone in a recent video pointed out that when I'm doing these list videos, I'll do something like I'll say, next up, Runestones. Runestones is a game, meaning I'll have that immediate double take, so I'll be like, just one. Just one is a game, so I have like the double name thing. Now that I'm mentally aware of it, I can't unhear it, so I'll try to not say it, but if you watch it in my older videos, or even this video, or until I get it out of my system, you will hear me say double names a lot. I've ruined that. You know, the glass shatter, like a little glass shatter moment, How I Met Your Mother, I've ruined it for you, you can't unsee it. Runestones is a game from Queen Games that I played the base game, and then I held on to it for a while. There's no review of this one, because I only played it once. I held on to it for a while to see if I get the expansions tabled, so we can play all of that, and just get it played with expansions, to see if the expansions push it from, that was a fun game, to that was a game worth keeping, because that's what this one is for me. Right now, if I were rating this one, I'm not rating it, I've played it once, it would be a 3.5. It was a good game. I had fun with it. I wanted to play the expansions. I read the rules for the expansions. I prepped for it. I did. And that was like 6 months ago. Hasn't been tabled since. The people who played it with me didn't seem intrigued enough. And they were kind of half willing to give another play. I wanted to give another play, but not enough to push for it. Not enough to teach somebody else the game to begin with. I like Runestones. I could barely even tell you what it does. The basic idea, there's a scoring track. There's all these different Runestones, which is the whole appeal. You're trying to gather these tokens and trade them in for Runestones. Use those Runestones for their abilities. It's the way and the combination of abilities you slowly gather that will lead you to ultimately having the best engine to convert everything in for points. A bunch of cards you have in play as well. The cards are going to be part of that engine. Whenever you play cards, you'll discard one of those cards. It's a whole balance of trying to make sure you discard and pair up the right cards. Whole system is very intriguing. But that's where it ended for me. It was intriguing. I liked my play of it. And for me, I felt like I needed more expansion content to make it a game that sticks. But I haven't played with expansion content, and so here we are. Runestones and 2 expansions, and I only play the base game. Speaking of which, we have a very similar, exactly similar situation with Abyss. Abyss is in the exact same boat as being a game that I played, with the exact same people, by the way. Played the base game of Abyss, enjoyed the base game. Did I say Abyss twice? I don't know if I did. See, that's the problem. I wasn't paying attention. This is a game in which I played the base game with the exact same people as I played Runestones. We committed to playing the expansions with the exact same people as I did Runestones, and we did nothing of the sort for the exact same, well, 5 months maybe instead of 6 months, for too long, is what I'm saying. And so Abyss as well, same idea. A game that I enjoyed the puzzle, but without feeling the base game was enough. Curious if the expansions would make it enough, but not compelled enough to continuously hold on to it in the hope that one day, someday soon, it'll actually happen. I don't know. Maybe it will. But I don't think so, because it's going on my games leaving the collection shelf, so that is what it is. But that's Abyss. The general idea of Abyss is you're going pearl diving. That's what's happening. You're going pearl diving, or you have a little bit of push-luck mechanism. You're going to be laying out cards and choosing the right card, but then the other cards get distributed to these piles that the players can take from those piles. Meanwhile, you're trying to gather these, I don't remember what they're called, the lords or whatnot. Again, same idea. It's honestly, it's similar to Runestones-ish. Not really exactly, but there's definite overlap in the way you're doing things, and the way you're trading things in to get stuff. But I enjoyed it. Don't feel the need to keep it. Not based on the play of the base game. Next up, we have Juicy Fruits, which is a game from Capstone Games. You see, that's what I have to do. I have to trick myself. I have to be prepped to skip past this. So instead of saying next up we have Juicy Fruits is a game from Capstone Games, I have to say next up we have Juicy Fruits, which is a game from Capstone Games. I have to just not pause. That's the trick. Just don't pause. Don't give myself the moment to breathe, because I talk way too fast. I use that moment to breathe, and someone ruined it for me. Juicy Fruits from Capstone Games. No, I just did it anyway. Is a solid game of sliding little carts around your island to gather fruits. I really liked it. Really did. But also it's very light. It's the kind of light game that it's like if my kids asked to play it more, I'd probably keep it. Or as a solid gateway game. It is a solid gateway game. I find that when it comes to gateway games, I'm always interested in keeping every game that's a good gateway game, because hey, it's a good gateway game. I can play with people who want a good gateway game. The practical reality though is that I have more gateway games than I need. I just do. I have tons of games that are even more enjoyable for me that are good gateway games, that I don't need to resort to a game that's less enjoyable to me. I like Juicy Fruits, a 3.5, good game. I really enjoyed it. It's fun, you move these tiles around, and then 4 plays later you've done the same thing again and again and again, and it hasn't really shifted up the experience. Now lots of games are like that, but you're really playing your own game very, very heavily in Juicy Fruits. There's a little bit of market competition for certain things, but minimally so. It's a game that, it's good. It really is. For 4 or 5 plays, and then at a certain point, it's only good, I think, for if you specifically are looking for that lighter experience, which I'm not on my end. So Juicy Fruits, Capstone Games, solid gateway game, really solid. Also, it could go. Then there we have Gorinto from Grand Gamers Guild, which is a abstract strategy game that I was really hoping would stick, but also I didn't think it would. You see, my problem with Gorinto is that Gorinto, one of my favorite games from Grand Gamers Guild, by the way, if you play it in the... I heard like crying outside. That's weird. Like, just for context, there should be no crying. I have no kids anywhere near me right now. Anyways, Gorinto is an abstract strategy game. I don't know why I'm putting it like this. Abstract strategy game in which you're trying to take these tiles that reflect the various elements, and you have scoring cards, and you're placing these down to try to score. And I find that I play it most at 2 players, and at 2 players, I think it's a solid 3.5. The 4-player team game, I actually like a lot more. It adds a lot more strategy and a lot more planning around the timing of your turns and their turns and the cards in between you. I think the 4-player team game is a solid 4 out of 5, which would be enough to keep it, but I don't play abstract strategy games with 4 players. Almost always when I have 4 players, we play like a lot of different games. 4 players is one of the most competitive spots in my collection as far as the number of games I want to play with 4 players, and so, what you gonna do? The answer is get rid of Gorinto. I like it. I like it a lot. It's a solid game. It's just the 2-player game, I have better abstract strategy games, and the 4-player game, too much competition for it. But it is really, really solid. It's one worth checking out, especially if you like abstract strategy. I just find I only keep like the best abstract strategy games, because like they're not a genre I play that often, but when I do play them, I love them. So I have Tak, I have Yinch, I have Tsar, I have Mythic Mischief, and I have Santorini. I think those are the abstract games I've currently kept. There are so many over the years that I've tried, really enjoyed, and moved on from, and Gorinto is in that category. But then we have awkward guests from I don't know the name of the company. 2 chairs a word. No, that's not it. There's a name company. Megacorpin Games. That's what it is. And this is one in which you're basically playing a deduction game. You're playing a deduction in which you're trying to figure out who killed Mr. Walton. You're going to have a Mr. Walton's death that happens every single game, and you're going to have a bunch of cards that give you certain criteria. You're going to have a specific case, that is. You're going to have a specific case, and then a bunch of cards that are divvied up amongst the players that construct that case. So there's a factual piece of information, there's a factual set of cards that all orchestrate to work together to give you an answer as to what happened. From there, you play a little dance and shuffle, exchanging information time and time again, trying to figure out how to offer, bid, and get more and more information about what's going on. Every single round, you'll divvy out more cards, more information. These people saw that. Those people did this. This person did not commit the murder with that weapon. That person may have committed the murder with these 2 weapons. That person walked from here to there, and the whole entire thing works together to give you a puzzle and a case and a mystery to solve. It's good. I like it. I think it's a solid game. I also think that the informational exchange feels anticlimactic. What gives you a pure, you know my whole thing with like crime and mystery and all that stuff? This gives you just tons of deduction, which is a lot of fun, with the minor problem that the deduction is not evenly distributed. So what happens in this game is that I'm playing a deduction game with different pieces of information than you are, and your piece of information might just be better than mine. And so the net result of Awkward Guess is that I love the deduction puzzle, but I don't feel it's a fair deduction puzzle. When someone wins an awkward guess, whether it's me or someone else, I just don't feel like I earned that victory or they earned that victory. I just feel like, hey, you got the information. Okay, maybe you are better at deduction, maybe you're not. I don't know. I don't even know, because we had different pieces of information we were looking at the entire game. Different pieces of buried information, different pieces of trade information, different pieces of new information. And so I like awkward guests, but because of that, I just don't love it. And I have a full review on that as well. Speaking of full reviews, we have Trekking the World from Underdog Games, which continues the whole trekking line of games. We have trekking through the national parks, which I have not played. We have Trekking Through History, which I have played. And we have Trekking the World, which I have played, really enjoyed. And it's another one of those like really solid gateway games, like Juicy Fruits. Arguably better than Juicy Fruits, I think, because I don't actually know, because mechanically I really like what Juicy Fruits is doing, but I think intuitively Trekking the World feels like a more familiar game, whether you have or haven't played games. So I don't know which one would make a better, gateway game that I'd recommend. But if you were like, hey Alex, I'm trying to play a game, or trying to introduce a game to my nieces and my nephews when I'm visiting for the holidays and this and that, and they've played that and this, and looking for a really good gateway game, Trekking the World and Juicy Fruits would both be strong contenders. Trekking the World involves you running around the board, running around the map, trying to run around the board. You're trying to gather various things to put in your suitcase. You're trying to accomplish these different goals over here by trading in cards. You're constantly using cards for travel, trading cards to visit locations when you're at the location to earn those points, using these abilities up here at the same time. It's a quick, fun, simple game that is very intuitive in terms of the world of board games. When you think, hey, what's a board game? Trekking the World is the kind of game that someone will think. It's very intuitive, very easy to play, plays in roughly 45 minutes to an hour, plays well at a variety of player counts. I don't think so, not so much at 2, but like 3 to 5, plays well, moves quickly. Lots of good things to say about Trekking the World, but for me it's not one that I feel the need to continue to dive into. It's another gateway game that I kind of want to own, but just won't for right now. 2 more left. We have Warpgate. Now Warpgate is one that I had enough... I did it again. This is one that I had enough positive interactions with that I held on to it for a while, but for me what killed Warpgate is Last Light from Roy. Now granted, Last Light's not coming for a while, so maybe I'll get rid of Warpgate, and then 3 months from now I'll want to play a short 4X game and I won't have one. I've done this before. Guards of Atlantis, I got rid of the original Guards of Atlantis because I had Guards of Atlantis 2 coming, but then it took like 7 months longer than expected, and so for 7 months I didn't have Guards of Atlantis. Granted, I wouldn't play it every day in those 7 months, but there were 2 or 3 times where I wanted to play Guards of Atlantis and I didn't have Guards of Atlantis anymore. This is a pure coincidence or subconscious. The people who make Warpgate make Guards of Atlantis. I forgot about that in the context of this conversation. Genuinely, totally forgot about it. Wolf Designer. No, I kind of like Wolfgang. No, Wolf Designer. They make Warpgate and Guards of Atlantis. That was a coincidence, though. Although maybe I just have a history now or a pattern that I'm establishing of getting rid of Wolf Designer games while I wait for another game that I'll then regret. Although in the case of Guards, it was waiting for Guards. I got rid of Guards to get Guards. I'm getting rid of Warpgate to get Last Light. Warpgate gives you a fast 4X experience. That's what it does. It gives you a fast-paced 4X experience, and it does so well. It's an enjoyable, fun puzzle that I also don't love. There's many things I like about it, and I like that it gives me a 4X experience that is satisfying in roughly 90 minutes or so. I don't find it hits that hour mark. But for me, diving into Last Light again just reminded me how good Last Light is at what Last Light is trying to do, giving you an accessible, fast-paced 4X game that hits it as well as any game I've ever seen for the type of experience it's going for. I like Warpgate, I do, but I'm not in love with Warpgate, and the specific spot it's filling in my collection will be filled by Last Light. So that's it. That's nothing fancier to say. It's a good game. There's a better one. Lastly on the list, we have Western Legends with like 4 expansions inside. Western Legends. Western Legends from Colossal Games is a sandbox adventure that I love, and I have a full review on this one. You can check it out if you want. It's a sandbox adventure in which I love my turn, and I don't care at all about your turn. Now, that selfishness is present in a lot of games, but I just find in Western Legends it tends to be a bigger problem. For me, at least. And maybe if you play with a bunch of experts of Western Legends, which is something that people have said is a possibility, maybe you'd have a great time. Maybe everyone would have like fast, snappy turns, doing the little engine. But for me, I know what I want to do when I play this game. I know what I want to do. I'm going to spend the next 3 turns walking here, grabbing the gold, returning to town, then selling it. Meanwhile, while I'm selling, I'm going to gamble. Sure, some things might get in the way, but I know what I'm doing for the next 5 turns. And now I have to wait for your 20 turns so that I can carry out my plan of action. I don't like that. Now, all games have that problem to a degree, but I find Western Legends is worse. If I'm playing Xayah, your turns are snappier and faster generally. I just find they are. I mean, maybe it's the group dependent, I don't know what it is, but while I like what Western Legends does, and while I like the world it builds, and while I like a lot of things about it, I don't love my turns enough to put up with the wait to get them. And I don't like it that much at lower player counts either, so that's a bit of a trade-off there too. I find Western Legends is a game that theoretically needs a minimum of 3, ideally 4 players, and yet I only care about my turn. It's a tricky spot to be in. This is a game that's well-loved, solid game. I really enjoyed my time with it. Dove into some of the expansions, not all of them. Didn't feel the need to dive into all of them to give an opinion on the game. Just, I played the basic, I played the anti-up. I don't think I played anything else. I could be wrong. But yeah, that's Western Legends for Colossal Games. A solid game in which I don't care about your turn at all. And these are the games leaving the collection. Once again, a reminder, if you are a patron, some of these will be given away. You get to choose, not me. Sometimes in these videos I'll be like, well, not that one, because that's like a $400 game, so I'm going to sell that one. But nothing here is off the table. These are all possible games to be given away. But we're giving away 4 of them, $3 to 3 of them to the higher tier that gets free games, and just 1 to the general patron, because I like to give a little bit of everything to everyone. And that is basically it. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this way too long, slightly more rambly than usual. I must be in a whimsical mood, I don't know exactly, but I feel this one was more rambly than usual. But until next time, have a good one.